This is one of the largest crowds, so I'd like you guys to all give yourselves a hand. How many of you traveled more than 100 miles to get here today? How many more than 50? How many are here because you support the Constitution? Turn around to the person next to high five every person. I want you to high five everybody. Because every single Okay, now, think of this as very simple. Self-defense is a human right. It crosses the political, social, cultural line. So the Second Amendment is everybody's amendment. And it's more than just for self-defense. It is protection of our great country. Right now, to me, we have to define what an American is. I'll tell you what an American is. An American is someone who believes in the values espoused in the Declaration of Independence, that we're all created equal, that we have inalienable rights given to us by God, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. If you believe in those, then you are an American. How many Americans do we have in here? Those are people that were born here, but they're hostile to American rights. And I call them Americans in name only, or ANOs. And we got a whole bunch of running our offices, don't we? So and there's a worse kind of ANO. There's what's called the nanny authoritarian status idiot. The ANO Nazis. And we got a whole building full of them here in Washington.
Yeah, we do!
Now, we hear a lot about the Second Amendment, so let's talk about the Second Amendment. What does it say? It says, boy, I'm going blank here. Okay. A well-regulated militia being necessary to secure a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, right to keep and bear arms is pretty self-evident, isn't it? How about that part that shall not be infringed? Yeah, yet we have 20,000 laws plus infringing our rights, don't we? Yeah. Okay, would you guys like me to tell you how that happened?
We let it happen.
Seriously, how many of you people here know how that happened?
We let it.
Okay, so I'd like to take you a few minutes to give you a little short layman's history that isn't being taught in our schools to our children. Okay, when America was founded, our country was the federal government was very small, the states were sovereign. The whole Bill of Rights, it applied to the federal government, and that showed, and that part about not being infringed, it did apply to the federal government strongly, as well as the rest of the Bill of Rights, but it didn't apply to the states and local governments. And that's something that's not being taught, because you see, all the states were literally sovereign states, so the whole federal Bill of Rights did not apply to the states. That's how we got the gun control laws on the local and state level in the first place. So I'm going to run you through some history really quick. 1791, Constitution is passed, we get the Bill of Rights, and the Bill of Rights is a chain on the federal government. Fast forward, we had this thing in the mid-1860s called the American Civil War. Some of you might have heard of it. Depending on what part of the country you're from, you might call it the war between the states or the war of northern aggression. Okay, after the Civil War was over, we had some amendments passed. The 13th Amendment, which freed the slaves. The southern states reacted by creating what's called the Black Codes. And the first thing they did was they stripped the newly freed slaves of their gun rights. Because once they stripped them of their gun rights, they could strip them of all their rights. Gun control started with racism. Anybody that supports gun control is a racist. In 1868, there was much debate about it, but one of the core things that they wanted to give back to the newly freedmen was their right to keep and bear arms, because that was the only way they could protect themselves from corrupt local politicians and men who rode on horses with white hoods.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, well, you know, we're gonna get it. We gotta be nice to some people. Some people are Democrats, so I'm not gonna be name calling. A little bit. Okay, well anyways, 1868 we get the 14th Amendment. There were two key provisions of the 14th Amendment relating to our civil rights, the due process clause and the Privileges and Immunities clause. Basically, the 14th Amendment was written to turn the Dred Scott decision of the Supreme Court on its head. That's what was done. However, the Supreme Court in 1873 and 1876 gutted the 14th Amendment with the Slaughterhouse and Cruikshank cases. So effectively, we were back to square one, except of course the states were no longer sovereign. Fast forward to 1934. How many of you heard of the National Firearms Act? Oh, yeah. Well, how did they get that through? Now, even though the Second Amendment didn't apply to the states, it damn well applied to the federal government. And the way they got around it is they created a tax. So what the National Firearms Act did was they tried to tax guns out of existence. And the original draft of the National Firearms Act actually included handguns. It wasn't just machine guns, it wasn't just short barrel rifles and shotguns. It was, they were trying to go for almost everything. They backed off on the handguns for a little bit. Okay, 1939, some of you may have heard about the Miller case. Well, the Miller case was a set case. It was a one-sided case argued by the government and was designed to kill the Second Amendment. Okay, fortunately for us, the justice who wrote the case was known to be lazy and not that great, so he left a lot of holes in it. So after 1939, we had no Second Amendment rights on a federal level. We could not bring anything into courts to protect our Second Amendment rights. Fast forward to 1941. There was a court decision dealing with the Commerce Clause. How many of you know what the Commerce Clause is? Okay, let me give you a quick little thing. The Commerce Clause is the key to getting our freedom from federal tyranny. Would you like me to explain? Would you like to know how this works?
Yes.
Okay. Originally, the Commerce Clause was designed to promote interstate commerce between the states. What happened during the Franklin Delano Roosevelt is that his board paid for Supreme Court got this case called Wickett versus Filburn. Now, Filburn was the Secretary of Agriculture, and Wickett was a farmer. The farmer was doing something really despicable. Let me tell you what he was doing. He was growing wheat on his own land to feed his cows. Can you believe that? How dare he does that? And the Secretary of Agriculture dragged him to the Supreme Court and said, you can't grow food on your own land to feed your own animals. Because if you do that, then you don't have to buy wheat from the commercial market. And if everybody did that, that would have a negative impact on the price of wheat and stuff, and that would negatively affect interstate commerce. And so I'm serious, I know it sounds insane, but that's the ruling. And what that did is the federal government, after that ruling, said that everything we do in our life is some form of interstate commerce, and that is how they got jurisdiction on our lives. Does that sound like crap or